start? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Now he shut it off. Now I can't see it because you had to complain. All right, we're gonna start with new staff. But I think we had a little bit of scheduling problem. So you wanna?
Sure. So we have in attendance Mr. Jesse Bardo. Jesse is our new middle school monitor.
Hey, Jesse?
So he is the face that you will see when you enter the district office middle school and level safety team, the emergency response team. So we're really excited to have Jesse here. He gives all of our students a warm welcome, and he's here tonight so we can give him the same. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Look, as you can come, Jesse.
Yeah.
And since you came to this board meeting, you have to come to all of them. Just, All right. Let's move to the consent agenda. Anything anyone want to hold, completely hold? All right, do I have a motion to accept? Approve, I should say.
So moved. I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, concerns? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right. We have the BOCES spotlight for your entertainment. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that. I think the BOCES Dutchess County School Board thing starts next Thursday. Just in case anybody's interested, it's still remote. They are talking about making it either hybrid or full-time back to in-person, but we'll see. All right, President and Vice President's reports. I really don't have much of anything. I've been talking with the I think it's good. We've had ongoing conversations with the mayor, Tim Colopy from Millbrook. Just different subjects like, as we move to sort of getting back to normal with parents bringing their kids in to sign them in if they're driving. Some of that's, cause confusion. I think it'll be good for us to stay in touch with the village. So hopefully we're going to make that sort of a regular meeting. But other than that, and the Dutchess County School Board starting up again. That's it for me. Chris?
Just a quick shout out, if you will, to MEF. Stacy Millbrook was beautiful. Thanks to the admin team for helping out. I've planned to help. Everyone's kind of glad it's behind them for now. But I'm sure you'll talk more about it in the monthly report.
Very good. All right. Caroline?
Thank you. So I want to echo what Chris said. MEF pulled off a beautiful taste of Millbrook, even though it was rainy and chilly. I think everyone did have a great time under the tent up at the winery. It was really nice to see the community members and the staff that were able to attend, so we appreciate that. I did want to say that in addition to the MEF, we also have a very supportive parent-teacher organization, and that new this year, we planned to send an administrative representative to each of their meetings to make sure that there's just constant communication and dialogue between our needs, their needs, and everything that's best for children. So we're excited to be able to start that consistently. In terms of instruction, I'm sure Ms. O'Connell will talk about some of this. We've been working on our IXL benchmarking for the beginning of the year, and that's been in the works in all 4 buildings. So that's how we get our consistent metrics and measures for the beginning of the school year so that we can compare growth throughout the school for each of our students. Our staff from the middle school and the E&L department went to a conference at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES about supporting students who are learning English as a new language. We also had some literacy support here in-house where a gentleman by the name of Garrett Jones-Roy, who was here with the middle and high school teachers in a coaching model. So he observed each of the classes, he collaboratively selected goals with individual teachers. So each teacher was able to select their own area of focus. He's going to come back and model a lesson, and then he's also going to observe the teachers working on the same skill. So this is embedded coaching. This is what we know to be the best type of professional development that will be ongoing throughout the school year. And this is the first year we've had the opportunity to have coaching really throughout the district K-12. So we have coaching in both math and ELA this year going on throughout the district. So we're really happy about that. We also, as I had mentioned, had our district emergency response first meeting of the year this past week. We also embed our health and safety initiatives in that particular meeting. So it's one committee, it speaks to all things health, safety, and security. And our drills for the school year are well underway in all 4 buildings, as well as our fall reunification drill has been planned. Mrs. O'Connell has nicely stepped up and volunteered her building, bless you, to do another practice. We will have, once again, we will have visitors from our local surrounding school districts because we really are one of the first districts that's taking this on in terms of, it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of preparation and organization that needs to be done ahead of time so that this can be employed at any moment's notice. So we're really one of the only districts that's doing it consistently. So we're welcoming others to come and see that it is doable, it is manageable, and really it's something that needs to be done. So we're happy to be able to offer ourselves as a lab site for other districts to learn. As you know, we had Spirit Week this week with all themed dress throughout this entire week. Yesterday, we had Barbie and Ken Day. Today is Country versus Country Club. Tomorrow is USA Day. We also have Luau Day on Thursday, and then Color Wars. So that's exciting. Obviously, the administrative team likes to partake in it as well to show our school spirit. So we are all dressed accordingly. Dutchess County BOCES is seeking a new member for their board. One of their board members has resigned. They are seeking a new member. From what I understand, it does not actually have to be a school board member from a local district. It can be a community member who's interested in serving in that capacity. Millbrook's currently not represented on their board, so he would be eligible to have a candidate. So if you know of anybody that would be interested in that, or if one of you is interested in that, please let Perry know, and he can let the representative from the county know. The principals met with students to review expectations for behavior and dress in each building. They had an assembly or some sort of meeting where they explained all of that to their students. We also had 3 of 4 our back to school nights over the past 2 weeks, and then the high school will be our last one this coming Thursday. We had a record number of students at Alden participating in Kindness Club. The first meeting was 72 students. So that's a really big group. And we also had a really large number of students who are going to join 4th grade band. So that's pretty exciting too. Our band numbers are up. I think 5th grade, the majority, well, last year's 5th grade, now 6th graders, the majority of them were participating. So we're really seeing our numbers at Alden Place, which is the beginning level of band, increasing over the last couple of years, which is great as those cohorts move forward, that our secondary band program will, maintain numbers, hopefully. Dr. Watkins and I have been working with a team from the Education Advisory Board to create a timeline and calendar to implement our strategic plan and to officially roll that out for our staff and community. So we're really excited about this work. We're also looking at lots of research associated with the pillars and the strategic objectives that were created by the planning team. Laura Fasheen is our new communication support partner from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. She is continuing to build a presence throughout the district. She has 2 days on campus throughout the week between on-campus work and also her work, you know, in terms of writing and publishing. It's about 2 days a week, and she will also be assisting with the publication of the Blazer Bulletin on a regular basis. So it's going to actually be more frequent weekly, and we're really excited to see our first one coming out at the end of this week. We had, as an administrative team, we had a refresher with Beth Harris, one of the attorneys from the law firm that represents the district, on DASA, all things discipline and considerations for discipline of students with disabilities. We are also, as a superintendent's council for the Lower Hudson region, we are working on the advocacy around bus issues, and the bus issues mainly being that we have mandates coming down about electric buses. By the year 2035, all of our fleets have to be fully electric. Some of the districts, like in our region, have routes that are just simply too long to be able to make that happen with a two-tiered system. By the time 2 runs happen, there's safety considerations, like what if we had to evacuate the buildings and send kids home? We literally wouldn't have charged buses to be able to do that. There's other considerations, like not all of our bus fleet would be able to be converted into electric buses. Some of them can be, and many of them cannot be. So we're looking at really big ticket items. Everything would need to change right down to the lifts that can be used to service these buses. So we're really trying to just voice concern and consideration to those in power to understand that, you know, no one's saying we're not willing to do this, but we really need everyone to understand what an undertaking this is and the financial burden that's this is being put on the districts.
Given that our district uses first student, whose responsibility is it? I mean, is the state telling first student, you have to do this, and they're just telling us it's gonna cost you a lot more? Is that basically?
Yeah, so actually, when we went out for the bid for last school year, I think it was, right? We went out for a transportation bid, and we had actually built into that purchasing and everything, it's compliant with the expectation that as of 2027, any new purchase buses would need to be electric, and the full fleet conversion would be by 2035.
Right, we would have to start, or whoever we contract with has to start buying buses in either the last year or the first year of our next contract.
Mhm.
So we would be staring down the barrel of compliance issues and the costs associated within the next 4 years.
But they would have to outlay the capital for the buses and the stuff. We would pay some increased rate. Is that
Right,
sort of the way it would work?
The way that our bid spec is written is there's a specification on age of bus and replacement cycle mandates. So that, assuming that you're bidding fairly, you can't assume the first student's gonna win. So you say any bidder has to be able to provide us with a fleet of a minimum of X number of electric buses at the inception of this contract. Whether it's first student or somebody else, they gotta start buying them in 2027. So.
Presently, correct, presently. However, as people in power either move on or move out of position, and as hopefully common sense takes over, that's the law today. It may get kicked down the road, we hope. We have to prepare, as you're saying, but it's not written in stone, and I doubt if it's gonna proceed as it's written currently.
The challenge for us is, like Caroline said, the mandate is full fleet conversion by 35. That means that the buses have to, you cannot purchase a non-electric bus after 27 to start the phases. So this is really like within the next 4 years for us. And that's what the concerns. Because like, to your point, Howard, they could change their mind in 10 years, but if they don't change it in 3.
Right, correct. If they don't keep pushing or making adjustments and exemptions and they're all lawyers, and lawyers, they get them to agree to something totally without everybody having a different opinion is interesting, right, Dina?
I actually just, when you bring this issue up, I wanted to mention in the NISBA proposed resolution that we're gonna be talking about next month. This is one of the issues that comes up a lot, and so there's supposed to be, like, with this new law, there's supposed to be a roadmap that the New York State has not fulfilled, and actually getting to the stages of all these issues that you've each presented. So, that's something we'll talk about, see what position this board takes on agreeing or disputing that resolution.
Yeah, so there actually, the roadmap was published. I don't know that it answers all of the questions that people have, but there is the first draft of that roadmap. And I think that, you know, I don't want to say for sure, but I think it was due to a lot of pressure of like, hey, we're supposed to be doing this, but you know, there was this agreement that they were going to publish said roadmap, and where is it, right? So, you have these expectations of us, you set forth expectations of you, where is this roadmap? So the first iteration came out. I'm sure there's going to have to be much more expansive guidance on what this is going to look like, because like I said, it's an enormous undertaking. Elliot and I just, you know, kicking around some of the considerations. We currently have, you know, fuel costs built into our contracts. Well, that's not gonna be a thing, but what is going to be a thing, right? The energy for charging these buses or whatever it is, right? There's something else to consider no matter what aspect of this you're looking at, right? Even the charging stations, they're not currently universal. The biggest producer of these electric buses just went under. So there's like lots of little things that school districts are facing in making this happen. No one's saying they're unwilling to be compliant, but compliance is really difficult right now. So that's kind of where we're at, and I will provide updates as I get them, but I just want you to know that it is a conversation in the local region amongst many different organizations, and including like you said, NISBA. So, tomorrow I will have the first annual meeting of the Council for the Prevention of Child Abuse. I am a board member, and that will be our first meeting for the year tomorrow morning. On Thursday, the district has a data meeting, so members of the data committee, that will be happening on Thursday afternoon. And as I had said, we did have our first safety meeting this past week. In terms of funding, I believe at the last meeting, I had mentioned that the ESSA title grants were almost approved, and they have finally been approved. So we are able to start utilizing those funds to impact our student programming, which we're really excited about. In terms of student services, staff from each building have attended the Old Age training and are fully trained. There'll be ongoing training, planning, and preparation throughout this school year for a full rollout in the fall. The ruler curriculum is being rolled out by teachers in all 4 buildings this year. So we have a calendar set for all of that work throughout this entire school year. And we will have representatives from GLSEN here for the first of 4 modules on October 6th. And that will focus on supporting students and advancing justice with regards to race, gender, and disability. We also have 2 new community partners. Marjorie Gouleyan from CAPE, which is the Council on Addiction Prevention and Education, and Elizabeth Conti from Astor have introduced themselves to all of our students. They've made themselves at home throughout the district, getting to know our students and staff, and starting to work on we encourage everyone to attend the Talcott training. They will be here presenting to families on current and recent drug trends. I think this is really important because Dutchess County has one of the highest rates per capita of drug overdose at all. That's pretty much all I have for my report. Any questions?
The top, is that in the classes or, but my other question, and I think I had mentioned this, the Council for the Prevention of Child Abuse, the gentleman, and I cannot remember his name, that came in and did that.
Yeah, Rick.
Yeah, is that in conjunction with him, or this is something different?
He is also one of the educators that works for the same council.
Okay. Okay. Okay, because I think I told you I happened to see him somewhere, and he's very interested in presentations or whatever if we need it. He
Yes.
said he's very open to it.
So we do actually bring in staff from CPCI to work with our children.
Okay.
We did last year. I think Rick does more of the community and adult education, but there are educators who come and work directly with children, and they did come last year, and they will be coming again this year.
Okay, great, great, thank you.
I have two questions. One related to the wonderful band participation, in the higher elementary school in fifth grade. For students who might be interested in playing an instrument but can't afford it, are there resources for them? And if so, are parents aware of that?
I'm not certain about that. I can certainly find out. But we really try not to ever have cost be a barrier.
Yeah.
So, if there were an issue, Mr. Luke was pretty good about letting us know. But I can certainly find out what is pushed out in terms of information to parents.
Okay, yes, I know, because we get the, what I've seen is there's the order form with the rental or the purchase price, and
Mhm.
sometimes that can be really hefty, especially depending on the instrument. And my second question was in regards to the saddening news of the per capita drug overdoses. Do we still have like a DARE program in elementary school?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we don't, and actually, many years ago, DARE was proven to actually not be effective. But the Council for Addiction Prevention and Education actually does education for our students. So, yeah, so there will be some of that programming and other programming from other sources that, Samantha Holzborg has an entire SEL calendar. We say SEL, it doesn't necessarily sound like that would include drug education, but it does, right? Because that's what number one, we know that students turn to drugs sometimes when SEL things are not going well, right? But also, drug use in the family and whatnot can impact a student's, well-being socially and emotionally. So all of those factors considered, there's a full SEL website, linked on our website. So or SEL calendar rather, on our website. So you can look and see all of the things that are related to drug education.
Okay, and our key program that starts in elementary schools,
It's mostly focused on the secondary schools in terms of, the education, but really she's here, or rather the counseling, but really she's here to work with anyone who has drug use in their family and is, having difficulties related to that. Because as we know that drug use impacts more than just the user, right? So it's those kinds of things. And then in terms of like whole class or small group programming, that's also available to our students.
Thank you.
Caroline, I wanted to mention also if there are families in need of some financial support for instruments, I think Music Boosters would be willing to help partially with that.
Yeah, and we do have some district-owned equipment here. We don't have an abundance of it, but we do have some. So, yeah, so there are different possibilities. I'm not sure what's set up, so I don't want to speak publicly to it. But I know that there are different resources. And one thing I will say that Mr. Lookwood definitely does is he does tap all of those resources whenever he has an issue with that. He definitely will get in contact with us and just see what we can do,
Okay. All right. And by the way, I know this could go to everybody, but that is the coolest mural that I've ever seen out on that hill. That is just absolutely awesome. And I don't know which kids, which teachers, who participated in it, but beautiful job.
Yeah, that's Mrs. Pring and the high school art students.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay. Let's see, Elm Drive.
Good morning, everyone. First, I just want to say shout out to MEF. I had a great time with the Taste of Millbrook, and it was really nice getting to see some of you there. I introduced Mr. O'Connell to many of you. Nice to, so it was a beautiful event. Elm Drive has had an amazing start of the school year. I'm so proud of all of the students and staff. Teacher curriculum work, as far as that goes, we recently upgraded to Eureka Squared as opposed to Eureka, which just is an updated version of the Eureka. It's much more student friendly. The sentences are more student friendly, the vocabulary. So that's been great. That also was able to come with upgrade the manipulative kits. So all of the kids have what they need for their math program. For the social emotional learning, the ruler curriculum math, as Ms. Hernandez-Gonzalez stated, the teachers are all rolling that out, but additionally, we have our monthly building assemblies where I introduce the concepts. We touch on the mood meter. I was really happy to work alongside Mr. Lister this summer to really align Elm and Alden. So we both have those assemblies happening now, and I think that there has been such great feedback from the students and staff and families. I'm really excited that this will be pre-K to 5. Again, IXL is in full swing right now, so we have those benchmark assessments ongoing. We have, thank you to Dr. Watkins, she's secured 3 instructional coaches this year, one of which will have her first day on Monday. And she is a reading coach, but will really help support the teachers with the UFly Foundation Manual, which is the University of Florida Literacy Institute, that really is a manual that supports educational curriculum and the different foundational reading skills. We have our keyboarding without tears. There was a little hiccup in the beginning of the year. It wasn't linking to Clever, but I'm really excited that that seems to have been fixed. So I'm hoping that by the end of this week, early next week, we'll be able to get that rolled out. It will be really nice because I know my son is in 9th grade and I watch him type like this, and it really frustrates me. So I'm really excited to get kids typing at an early age. And it's really, again, student-friendly, bright colors. I'm really excited for the feedback for that. Team times were built in to schedules this week with teachers, again, this year, again, for teachers. So they have 2 in a 6-day cycle instead of 3 30-minute sessions. Last year, they have 2 40-minute sessions. And while it's a smaller amount of time, I feel like it's more productive to have those extra 10 minutes because it really takes, 5 minutes to get into the swing of things and then between wrapping up and everything. So I'm really excited for that. As far as safety, we've updated all of the building maps. As some of you know, we have moved a lot of classrooms around this year. So our special area teachers for art and music are now at the end of our 2nd grade wing, which is nice because music can be really loud and not disrupt the classroom next door. We had our first building safety team meeting this morning, which was really productive. I took a lot of notes, and then I actually met with John Mullins immediately following that. And I went over a lot of the things that we talked about in the safety meeting. We completed 1 evacuation drill and 1 lockdown drill. Additionally, I attended an incident commander training last week at PNW BOCES. It's part 1 of 2. I have the next session next Wednesday. I really look forward to that. It's with Frank Guglieri, and I always leave learning so many new things. That said, one of the things he did talk about at that, I was so proud of him to mention the reunification drill and really Millbrook stepping up to be really great leaders of taking that on. That said, because Elm Drive had the reunification drill at in June of last year, we had great feedback from staff, and while it's fresh in our minds, I'd really like to take the feedback and suggestions to really focus in on having an even better one on October 11th, which will be linked to our kindergarten field trip. I sent a message out to staff, and I did mention that even if someone isn't on the safety team, if they would like to observe, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but really don't get a good understanding of it unless you're seeing it. So I would love to have as many other people that it can help as possible. For our highlights, we had a great back to school night on the 14th. A lot of very good turnout. Parents were happy to be back in the building. A lot of them seeing the sensory room completed for the first time, which is always great. This week is Spirit Week. We had our first Blue Ribbon Blazer Assembly last week, and it was wonderful. We highlighted the character trait of respect. The sensory decals were put on the blacktop outside. So inside, we have our sensory pathways, which is all of the teachers try to get the kids to walk in a straight line coming down the hallway, and then I go and put like hopscotch on the floor. They're all hopping down, and I'm like, sorry. But it's so nice to see them enjoying all of them, and I know even for PT, OT, I see them often take their kids out and say, okay, what would you like to do? Do you want to do bear crawl, or do you want to do, you know, the moonwalk? And it's just, it makes it all worth it, seeing that the kids so happy. But that said, we also had sensory decals that we put on the blacktop outside. They are reusable stencils, so it's nice because they can actually be used in other areas, and they're not just like a one and done. They're used with spray paint. So we have a yoga circle. It has like the tree pose and all those other yoga terms. But after it's done there, it could go to Alden, and Alden's welcome to use those stencils because it does include different licenses for other buildings. Our new dismissal procedure, I feel I could link this to the safety aspect of it. I'm really thrilled with how it's going. I commend the parents. I know it's a big change compared to last year and the year before, but if we are putting students first and their safety first, I feel as though this was really something that I felt needed to be changed last year, but coming in new, I had to pick and choose what I got rid of right away. But it's been great feedback. It hasn't seemed to, it's gone really smoothly on the inside. It seems to be going well on the outside. I've talked to a lot of parents about it, and they were used to this for decades before I came here. So it seems as though a lot of them were like, oh, well, we're going back to how it was, which is fine. And our first WIN cycle will begin next week. So now that curriculum-wise, we've had all of our baseline assessments done, our screeners, we've really used team times to really look at all of that data, group kids based on their needs, and roll out our WIN cycles in the classrooms. Our first for upcoming events, I'm really excited for this. Our first Croctoberfest. I worked with the PTO and thank them for approving a lot of the supplies for it. I worked with my building rep, Jeff Luzinski, and I'm going to put up a team. Well, not put up a team, I'm going to ask for volunteers to be part of Croctoberfest planning, and it's really a multicultural event where families, I don't have all of it figured out yet, I'm waiting for the team, but the idea is to bring in a crock pot of food that is representative of your culture in some way. So I'm really excited for that. We'll see how it goes. First grade is going on an apple picking trip. Mindful Movements is back next week. Really excited for that. The kids are excited for that. When I mentioned that it coming back, just great feedback from everyone. And I believe it was so successful last year that Alden is now having mindful movements as well. We have our book fair next week, our go home early drill, pink out day, and we've already signed up for the National Theater for Children. They have an energy and games. Central Hudson every year comes and puts on a free show for kids. It's always really amusing and the kids really enjoy it. So thank them for that. And that's it.
Very good.
Can I just ask, first of all, the Croctoberfest thing? I know how I'm old. I remember my elementary school, West Road did it. I think it was West Road. It was awesome as a kid. Oh my God, it was so great.
So you want to be part of my
Well, the Irish, I don't think I'd be allowed to bring in beer, so I
No,
probably
but
shouldn't go.
maybe.
Can I just ask what the new dismissal process is?
Yeah, so I worked with Mary Beth, who's been there a long time, and Albert, who's been there forever. And really mirrored what was done previously. So none of the staff park in the side parking lot. They all park in the back, so parents can park in there, and they have to come in through the side APR door. There's a table set up, it has 2 of our staff members, one does pre-K and K, one does first and second. The parents have to show ID, the first couple of days, and it's hard because we're a small district, a small town, everyone knows everyone, but just because we know everyone, if we have someone there who doesn't necessarily know you, it's just important, we should have our ID on us all the time anyway. So there was that little hiccup, but now it's wonderful. So they show their ID, the kids line up, they when they see their parent come, they walk over, but it's really nice because it's a single point of, not single. The bussers exit through the main doors, but for these students, they're exiting through those doors, and taking our aides and being able to put them in the building. It's been so helpful. The APR it's much more organized, and especially in the morning, we used to have parents drop off, and there were, kids coming in the front, kids coming in that one side door, and that I didn't care for, because now I have 2 aides at that door, 2 aides at the front door, and this is really more of like, this is the single point of entry. So safety wise, I don't have to worry about having so many bodies around, and everyone comes to that front door.
Thanks.
I wanted to comment, after the walkthrough, seeing the sensory room and the hopscotch and the paw prints, like you mentioned, I thought it was so out of the box and so intuitive for all the SEL that the district is moving towards, and just wanted to commend you for that. I have not seen anything like that before. I don't know if other schools are doing it, but they should definitely, I think, follow that model. I also want to comment about, the blue ribbon ceremony. So I was fortunate enough to attend, I think, one of the last blue ribbon ceremonies last year. And the way you conduct it in focusing on SEL, and the children don't even realize it. And you're talking about moods and what do different emoji faces represent, what feelings, and talking about the different themes of respect and cooperation. It was just wonderful seeing those children cheer each other on and work together from pre-K to 2nd grade. And I really can't wait to see how, when they can affect them, and just instilling that from now. So thank you for that. And then my question about the lockdown drill. So one of the board articles mentioned, between mental health and lockdown drills, how lockdown drills are obviously necessary, try and do them in a manner where it's as realistic as possible. But sometimes, especially for such young kids going through that, even as a practice, can be affected or would have a lot of fear. And so do we have anything where if children are really fearful during the lockdown to assist with like any anxiety or mental health services afterwards? If, even just one child afterwards that really comes out of that experience from the drill, like a pre-K student, really scared, what do we do for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That was also brought up in my training last week with PNW BOCES. I'll say that the teachers in the building, they do a really wonderful job preparing the students, especially for our students with disabilities. They do also a lot of social stories to really try and explain to them at their level why we're doing these things. I feel like I commend all of the staff in the building. They really know the kids, and they know the kids who may need support afterwards. And we're fortunate enough to have Michelle Patron in our building, who is phenomenal. She's like my right-hand man. She would absolutely touch base with any student who needed that after. Thankfully, I have not heard any feedback thus far from the evacuation drill or the lockdown drill. And I think that speaks to the level of preparedness, even for our pre-K kids. It's actually so impressive to watch these So some of them are 3, they're babies, to watch these 3-year-olds do this so, it's like so uniform and just handle it so well. It really speaks to how early on they're being prepared for these things. So I appreciate you pointing that out and definitely have hands on deck for any student who needs that. Absolutely.
And I just want to mention, you're giving the one finger typing a bad rap. Back in my day, in a different world,
Get a nerve.
I passed Regents typing with one finger, and I still do it today. I get like 26 words a minute.
Well, I hope it gets to that because I'm like.
No way.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But you also had that bird when you were chiseling on the.
That's right, I was stoned.
Seriously, one thing I will ask, and this isn't just you, I mean, Elm Drive. When we're going to make a change to, a pickup or drop off or something. Think about the bigger area around the school. The first day that we switched it, I don't know how many phone calls I got. Parents parking in front of my house and they're walking their kids to school. And, I know the parents were probably like, well, I'll park over here. It'll be easier that way, which it wasn't. And I think all that has resolved itself. Just as long as we know that something is changing. So then when the mayor calls or whoever calls and says, I can't park in front of my house. Just to tell us that, so that we can even speak to it. And again, this is not just you, but everyone in general. And the other thing was I was in Caroline's office when that lockdown took place and scared the bejesus out of me. I was like, crap, we're locked down, what the hell? So I didn't see any counseling services. I just went out in the hallway and cried a little bit.
Well, if you need any, we have it.
Anyway, nicely done. And it does feel like and it's been the last few years that little by little, that gap between Elm and Alden has been closing. And that's one of the things that from the moment I got on the school board, it was a big deal. It was Elm and Alden and we're not, and now I think it is really changing for the better. So I thank everybody in the team for doing that and pushing that. Anyway, anything else? All right. So I got kicked off for some reason. All right, next is financials. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any against? Okay, very good. Next is the authorization of fund balance levels and adjustments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ellie, you want to just give like a quick, this is what's happening here?
Absolutely. So for those that may not be familiar with the restrictions on our budgeting in terms of fund balance, there's 2 kinds of fund balance. There's assigned and unassigned or restricted, so the assigned is restricted into these reserve accounts. They are tagged and designated for a reason. It's like having a targeted savings account. In terms of unassigned fund balance, we are restricted to no more than 4% of the subsequent year's budget. So the 23-24 fund balance from 22-23 cannot exceed more than 4% of the 23-24 budget. When we did our calculations, we had $2.6 million left over unassigned, and we can only carry 1.3 million. So you can see that the specific numbers in the memo. So we needed to find a home for essentially $1.2 million in order to maintain compliance. And just for those playing along at home, good financial practices to carry a fund balance of 10 to 15% in any corporation. The state mandates that we carry no more than 4%. So we have to be very strategic with where we put our assigned and restricted fund balance so that, you know, we can stay healthy despite only having 4% available for those unforeseen circumstances. And so, you know, we worked with our financial planners, our accountants, kind of looked through this as we were going through the audit. And we felt that the 4 reserve accounts that we wanted to contribute to out of that 1.2 million would be to max out our capital reserve. So that brings us to the full $10 million authorization. What that also means is that if we want to put away any capital money in the future, we have to open up a new reserve, which is great because they only last 10 years anyway. So we're going to look to, with this allocation of $853,000, we're going to look to really use that 10 million in support of our upcoming project load in May, should we get authorization from the voters. We're also going to add money to our TRS reserve. That is our sub-reserve of our retirement system. And that's within the to our insurance reserve, as we can only put $33 million or $33,000 into it, sorry. So we want to max out that contribution. And the tax certiorari reserve, I can just explain that for a moment. So for those that may not be familiar, a tax certiorari is when a tax-paying entity, whether it's a landowner or an organization, challenges their assessed value of their property. And so our tax rate, our taxes are based on assessed values. And if somebody says that my assessment is too high, they submit a tax certiorari claim, and if the judge agrees with them, they lower their assessed value, which lowers their taxes. We've probably already collected those taxes, and so we have to refund some of that tax money to that landowner. Having a tax certiorari reserve allows us to prepare a little bit of a cushion should any of those judgments come down in favor of the petitioner. And so we have a number of outstanding claims that are pending judgment. And myself and the business office team, we looked at what the valuation of all those outstanding claims were. And we wanted to increase the tax certiorari reserve so that if every single one of those judgments comes through, we have enough in reserves to cover it without dipping into the general fund. So that's the impetus behind the $176,000 allocation towards the tax certiorari reserve. So with those 4 reserves, we're able to consume all of that $1.286 million to bring us within the compliant amount of $1.359 million in unassigned funds.
The one question I have is on the repair reserve. Why that's only $6,000? Is that?
So that's a fun one. Repair reserves are intended for emergency repairs that you don't necessarily have the money for within the year. So what we're doing right now is we're managing leftover 22-23 money. So we can't replenish the 22-23 reserve with 22-23 money. So that becomes a purchase order in this year to pay back that money from last year. So it's really an accounting issue, but we do have to fund it out of the current year budget. And technically what we're doing right now is managing what's left of last year's budget. So that's why we didn't replenish it as part of this plan.
But when does it get replenished?
It'll happen this year. We need to close the books on the audit, and then it'll be paid out of that 4% will go towards replenishing.
But that doesn't, I mean, if we have something break now that we didn't expect, this doesn't stand in our way.
No, the board could, in recognition of an urgent matter, declare an emergency, which would trigger those exceptions to general municipal law requirements for bidding to expedite the repair, and then we could just find money essentially out of the 4% if we needed to.
Okay.
And the other thing that I wanted to share also is with all the uncertainty of this economy, these reserve funds all accrue interest. So for example, we came into the school year with 8.8 in that capital reserve, and we had 9.1 by the time we were looking at replenishing or adding to it. So we earned almost $300,000 or just over $300,000 in interest just on the cap reserve. So this is also responsible budgeting in that while we're saving this rainy day fund on the side, it's growing interest, to help us out in the future as well.
Okay. Very good. Other questions on this? Comments, concerns? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any against? All right, questions, comments from the public? That includes you right now. I mean,
No, we have like.
nothing, okay. All right, let's go to the PTO report.
So the PTO voted to increase the PTO budget for each of the buildings from $1,000 to $1,500, and the school principals were notified of that change. The goal is to build more community events, as Ms. O'Connell had mentioned, the Croctoberfest. The Elm and Alden Book Fairs will be starting the beginning of October. First, it's going to be the Elm Book Fair ending October 6th, and then the following week will be the Alden Book Fair. As Ms. Padilla mentioned, the Mindful Movement is coming to Alden, but thankfully, so last year PTO sponsored that, but thankfully, I believe between the work of Mr. Lipka and Ms. Hallsberg, they were able to get a grant for Mindful Movement, which Alden will be having monthly from October through April. On with the PTO to bring to Alden are another karate presentation for SEL, a basketball presentation, to deal with SEL and confidence in sports and movement as well. The PTO is excited to have the liaison that Ms. Padilla mentioned from the admin, because this was something, Perry, you had mentioned, in filling that gap between what does the PTO want from the board and vice versa. And I think that will help to fill the gap, because sometimes, for example, there's questions of a fund request for a field trip, and the first question is always, well, can these funds be taken from the district before, it's replenished from the PTO? And so I think navigating the system, what resources are out there will help us to serve all students with the best resources both district and PTO have. And that is all for me.
Very good. Dina?
Thank you.
All right, MEF report. I haven't been up to anything, have I?
Still recuperating. I got my energy back just in time to come tonight, so. Right.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sorry, positive adjectives, but it was just exquisite. Despite the rain, almost everybody who bought tickets showed up. We had some additional attendees buy tickets that day, knowing, obviously what the weather was, and some bought at the door, and everybody in this room helped in some capacity, even Jesse, because he helped get some auction items for me out of Caroline's office. Thank you for those. So every single person, whether even if you couldn't attend, I know you helped spread the word, and I just thank you all. Admin, you were volunteering, you were serving, helping direct cars out in the rain, and so.
They did, I just ate.
Well. So Alicia and Amy were over there. They're mad. You want to learn some auction skills? Those two, you follow those two. It was just wonderful. And shout out to the jazz band and Mr. Duttinger and Mr. Garcia and those students. It's the beginning of the school year, and they had to, crash practice, and they were, didn't miss a meeting. So. Yeah, chorus, right? Alex's new select, Mr. Garcia's new select ensemble. Amazing. So, and our community, sponsors, food donors, auction givers, and some people did all three. I mean, it's just phenomenal, the response from the community. And we haven't crunched all the numbers, but I know for auction alone, we raised $8,515 just on those auction items. So thank you to everybody. The giving tree, about half of the items on the giving tree were bought that evening, and we'll figure out a way to so the rest of those items can be fulfilled. Community Day, October 7th. Mrs. Wimmers Donaghy, your last name, fifth grade who will be in front of the library and at some point in the afternoon, time hasn't exactly been set yet. Playing those ukuleles, which MEF
Nice.
funded, and part, going back to your question earlier about children who can't afford instruments, that was one reason for her application for the ukuleles, at least, you know, all children, even if they can't afford an instrument, they will learn some type of instrument. So that's part of the reason that the application was sent in and MEF gladly funded that, so. More to come. We'll rest for a little bit, but not long. Yeah.
Right? Future agenda items, you got those. Unless there's anything else, do I have, sorry, gotta do my thing. We're gonna be going into executive session. But that doesn't mean the meeting ends. There may be things that we discuss in executive session that require an action when we come back into public session. So just wanna make sure everybody's aware of how the process works. With that, do I have a motion to go to executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against?